The frost clung to the windows like a secret not yet told. The kind of morning where every breath fogs the air just enough to remind you you're alive, even when it doesn't feel like it. Inside the diner, the heat hummed low from a radiator in the corner. Booth cushions were cracked from years of stories overheard and coffee spilled during heartbreak. A little boy sat tucked into the far end of a booth near the back window, his knees drawn in, fingers tracing invisible circles into the Formica table. His father sat across from him, the glow of his phone casting blue shadows across his sharp cheekbones. His coat, expensive, neatly tailored, looked out of place amid the chipped mugs and faded menus. The boy's hand hovered over a sugar packet. Just hovered. Then a voice, soft as the snowfall outside, broke the stillness. "Watch this," the waitress whispered. She crouched beside the boy, gently unfolding a napkin and placing it in front of him like a ceremony. With a red crayon from the hostess station, she drew a simple sun, bright rays stretching out uneven and warm. The boy stared at it and smiled. A tiny, flickering thing. But it was there. June noticed it first. She always noticed the quietest things. His name was Sam. She'd overheard it once when his father ordered his usual black coffee, dry toast, scrambled eggs for the boy. No salt, no ketchup, no talking. June had worked at the Maple House Diner since she was 19. It was a small place. Just 3 booths, 6 tables, and a counter with chrome stools no one really sat at anymore. Locals passed through like clockwork, but these 2 were newer. She'd noticed them in late fall, always arriving just as the church bells stopped ringing. The father, Daniel, rarely looked up. Everything about him screamed efficiency, the kind of man who could calculate profits faster than he could recognize when someone was hurting. But not cruel. Just folded inward. June didn't know their story, not really. But she could guess. The boy, Sam, never spoke, never made a sound. Sometimes he didn't even eat. He just sat, tracing crumbs or folding napkins into triangles, with focused, tiny hands. One Sunday, June brought over a children's menu and 2 crayons instead of 1. Sam didn't look up, but his fingers reached slowly toward the green crayon. He held it like it might shatter. She didn't push, just watched. Over the next few weeks, she started placing quiet choices in front of him. 2 cups, 1 blue, 1 red, 2 napkins, 1 folded, 1 not. "One day," she whispered, "point to the one you like." He didn't, not at first, but the next week, he did. His father barely noticed. Or maybe he did, but didn't know what to do with what he was seeing. Daniel wasn't a bad man. He was a man in grief's long hallway, where every door you open leads to more silence. His wife, Amelia, had died just over a year ago. Sudden heart failure at 34. One moment reading bedtime stories, the next, stillness. After that, Sam stopped speaking. The doctors had no explanation. They called it selective mutism, trauma response, said it might come back in time. But time didn't feel helpful when your child looked at you like you were made of glass. Daniel had done everything right. Therapists, specialists, even a custom speech device. But nothing changed. Sam's voice stayed locked behind some invisible door. So now, Sundays were a ritual of resignation. Until June. One morning, as the snow fell in loose veils outside, June placed something small beside Sam's plate. A smooth oval river stone, soft gray, cool to the touch. "For courage," she whispered. "My brother had one just like it. Helped him find his voice when he was ready." Sam picked it up, held it tight, slipped it into his pocket like it was sacred. Daniel frowned. "He doesn't need," but June held his gaze, gentle, firm. "It's just a rock, or maybe it's not." That night, Daniel found the stone on the nightstand beside Sam's bed. It sat next to a photo of Amelia, tucked into a frame made of popsicle sticks and dried glue. He touched it. Cold, smooth, ordinary. But it made his chest tighten in a way he didn't expect. At the diner the next week, June brought a small notepad and handed Sam a pen. "If you don't want to talk," she said softly, "maybe you can write." He looked at the pad for a long time. Then, slowly, carefully, he wrote the letter. J. June smiled. "That's my name." The next week he wrote S, and then he signed the word more with his tiny hands after a drawing session. Daniel nearly dropped his coffee. He leaned across the table. "Where did he learn that?" June looked at him, wiping her hands on her apron. Maybe he always knew, maybe no one asked the right way. That night Daniel sat in the dark, the only light coming from the flicker of a fireplace app on the TV. He pulled up an old video, Sam at age 3, singing with Amelia in the kitchen. Her laughter rang like bells. Sam's high voice echoed, sweet and sure. Daniel watched it twice, then again. Then he paused it, hands trembling, and rewound to a moment where Sam called him Daddy, with a grin full of peanut butter and light. The next morning, Daniel placed the Riverstone in his coat pocket before they left. He didn't know why, just that it suddenly mattered. Snow swirled outside as they entered the diner. The usual hush of a Sunday morning wrapped around them like an old song. June was there, of course. Coffee in one hand, notepad in the other. Sam slid into the booth and opened the pad without being asked. He drew something, a circle, then 2 eyes. June leaned down. "Is that me?" Sam nodded. Daniel blinked. Something in his throat, something unused, tightened. That afternoon, Sam fell asleep in the booth, head tilted against the window pane. His breath fogged the glass in soft clouds. June sat across from him, her head resting lightly on her palm, just watching him, not as a server, not even as a friend, as something closer to family. Daniel looked at the two of them, and for the first time in over a year, he didn't feel entirely alone. Outside, snow fell like a blessing, silent and slow. Winter lost some of its bite by the time February came, but the morning still carried a brittle chill. The booth at the diner had become more than habit. It was an unspoken sanctuary. Daniel sat with Sam in their usual spot. Frost laced the corners of the windows, soft light filtering through. June was already there, apron tied haphazardly, a strand of hair falling over her cheek as she poured coffee for the trucker crowd. Her eyes found Sam instinctively, and she offered a soft smile. Daniel noticed how Sam perked up when she entered the room, his fingers twitching against the crayon she'd left for him last week. Daniel stirred his coffee absently. "That waitress, June," he asked the manager that morning. "She always this involved with the customers?" The manager leaned in, wary. "Walks 2 miles to get here. Takes care of her old neighbor. Paints downtown in a shared space. Kind of person who still says, 'Good morning' to cats." Daniel offered a nod, already halfway distracted again, half listening, half feeling something he didn't want to acknowledge. Later that morning, after a short drawing session with June, Sam handed Daniel a crumpled piece of paper, a crayon, sketch. 3 stick figures, a tall one, a short one, and a girl with bright yellow hair. The tall figure had a beard. Daniel blinked, realizing it was meant to be him. June, passing by with coffee in hand, saw it too and gave Sam a subtle thumbs up. "Nice work," Daniel murmured. But Sam was already coloring another son. They started sitting together more often. Not deliberately, just naturally. June would clock out early and join them at the booth. She didn't ask about Daniel's work, and he didn't mention it. Their breakfasts were mostly silent. Toast, jam, steam rising in idle spirals from ceramic mugs. But silence didn't mean nothing was happening. One morning, Daniel watched as Sam reached across the table. Not for the crayons, not for the juice, but for June's hand. June's eyes widened in quiet surprise. She offered her fingers gently. Sam held them. Daniel's throat tightened. He hadn't even noticed when his son stopped reaching for him. Daniel watched June like a man studying the sun through glass, cautiously, reluctantly, mesmerized. She never talked to Sam as if he were broken, never pushed, never begged. Just showed up with a fresh object, tiny, peculiar things that seemed insignificant on the surface. A feather, delicate and white, a small brass key from a music box worn smooth, a single marble that caught the light like a drop of water. She would place them in front of Sam with a soft, "Want to guess?" Or sometimes nothing at all. Sam would turn them in his fingers like puzzles, sometimes smiling, sometimes simply watching the reflections. Daniel asked her once, "Why do you bring him these things?" She shrugged. "Because someone once gave them to me. When I couldn't speak either." He didn't ask more, but she offered it anyway, on a quiet Tuesday morning when the diner was empty except for the three of them and an old couple sipping tea. "My brother stopped talking when he was 5, June said. Doctors couldn't say why. He just stopped, but he'd smile when I gave him something to hold. He liked textures, cold, smooth, strange." "What happened to him?" Daniel asked. She hesitated. "Car accident. He was 15. We were driving to school. I was supposed to be in the passenger seat that day, but I was sick. He never got to say goodbye. Never said my name, even once." Daniel looked away, his jaw tightening. "I'm sorry." June nodded. "Me too." Sam began humming that week. Not words, just soft, broken sounds. Ma, ja, like fragments floating through deep water. June didn't cheer or make a fuss. She just smiled and hummed the tune back, the two of them echoing each other, like a quiet duet. That night, Daniel sat in his car outside the diner long after closing. He pulled out his phone and opened a video. Sam, at 3 years old, giggling in a high chair while his mother made animal noises. Daniel watched the clip over and over, the laugh now like a memory stolen from someone else's life. When it ended, he pulled the river stone from his coat pocket, the one June gave to Sam, which Sam had slipped into his father's briefcase without a word. Daniel held it. Let it ground him. Let it hurt. The following Sunday, June didn't show up. No message. No call. Nothing. Sam grew agitated as soon as they entered the diner. He refused to sit in their booth. Refused to color. His toast went untouched. Instead, he scribbled hard, angry lines on the napkin June had once drawn a sun on. Daniel tried to soothe him, but it only made things worse. By the end of breakfast, Sam had curled into himself, eyes wet, fists clenched. Daniel left a generous tip and bundled Sam into the car. The next morning, after dropping Sam at school, Daniel drove to the diner again. June still wasn't there. He asked the manager, who hesitated before giving him an address on a napkin. It was a rundown walk-up on the edge of town. Daniel knocked, then knocked again. June opened the door slowly, hair tied back in a loose bun, eyes ringed with fatigue. "Hi," she said softly. "Sam's asking for you," Daniel said. "Well, he's not asking, but he's not okay," she exhaled. "My landlord doubled the rent. Had to take on night shifts cleaning offices. I couldn't make it in." Daniel stepped forward slightly. "I have a guest apartment, 2 blocks, from me. You can stay there. No rent, no strings." June folded her arms. "Daniel, I'm not trying to fix everything with money." "Yes, you are." He paused. "You're kind," she said. "But not everything broken needs to be paid for. Some things just need to be sat with." Daniel looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in a long time he didn't argue. He just nodded. "I'm sorry," he said, "for trying to fix it instead of understanding it." June softened. "Thank you." That weekend she returned. Sam lit up the moment he saw her, ran to her without hesitation, and then quietly he reached into his pocket and pulled something out. The river stone. He placed it in her palm, his voice barely a whisper. "Yours now." June's breath caught. She knelt down and pulled him into a hug, her arms trembling. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she held him, as the diner around them faded to a hush. Daniel watched from the booth, eyes wet, hand flat on the table where his phone used to be. This moment he knew could not be bought. By March, winter gave up its grip, retreating like a tired ghost. The days lengthened. The cold shrank back. Sam began speaking in scattered phrases, like stepping stones across a stream. Want June. Love blue. Mama sky. Each word, a thunderclap in Daniel's heart. He no longer asked where the words came from. He knew, from safety, from stillness, from a rhythm found between his son and the woman who refused to be anything other than herself. That Friday evening, Daniel stepped across an invisible line. Stay for dinner? He asked June as she wrapped her scarf around her neck outside the diner. She raised an eyebrow. You cook? Kind of. She smiled. Then I'll stay. Kind of. At his house, dinner was simple. Roasted vegetables, pasta, and a bottle of wine Daniel forgot he had. Sam ate slowly, focused, legs swinging beneath the table. June made a castle out of napkins to make him laugh. It worked. The lights were dim, the air warm with the scent of garlic and rosemary. June told a story about mistaking baking soda for flour. Daniel told one about Sam drawing on the walls with applesauce. Their laughter floated across the table like candlelight. Later, when Sam had wandered to his blanket fort, Daniel sat across from June with a soft smile. Thank you for saying yes. She gave a half nod. Thank you for asking. After she left, Daniel cleaned up the plates, humming a tune he didn't realize he'd memorized from the toy piano Sam had been banging for weeks. As he picked up one of Sam's drawing books off the kitchen counter, a folded note fell out. His name was on it, Daniel. He froze. It was her handwriting, his wife's. He sat down slowly at the kitchen table, heart clattering in his chest. He unfolded the note. The paper was creased and worn as if someone, perhaps June, had read it more than once. He'll stop speaking. But not forever. Be patient, Daniel. He needs to feel safe again. Make him feel safe. The ink was slightly smudged. A tear fell onto the bottom of the page. Daniel pressed his hand to his mouth. Closed his eyes. He had been trying to fix everything, control everything, pay everything. But Sam didn't need fixing. He just needed to feel safe. And for the first time, Daniel understood what that meant. Not money, not therapy, not even answers. Just love, present, unspoken, constant, relationship deepening. Next 700 and 900 words. The next time June came over, she brought a small toy in a cardboard box. It was dusty, worn, and when she pulled the tab on the back, it played a tinny lullaby. Sam's eyes lit up. He touched the speaker gently. Then, without warning, he began to move, a soft sway, a little spin, his first dance, not choreographed, not polished, just pure. Daniel and June exchanged a glance, part disbelief, part wonder. He's never done that before, Daniel whispered. June didn't respond. She just watched, her lips parted in awe. Later, when Sam curled up with his toy in the living room, Daniel stood at the window, watching June stand under the blossoming tree outside. She looked like a painting, not distant, not idealized. Real. He'd forgotten how to look at someone that way. Do you paint people? He asked as she stepped back inside. Not usually, she said, setting her coat down. But I do landscapes. Want to see? She took out her phone and showed him a gallery of soft sweeping scenes, fields under fog, trees bent by wind, rivers frozen mid-curl. One stood out. A single swing, mid-air, suspended between two trees. A figure in blue on the seat, blurred as if caught in motion. That's him, Daniel said quietly. June nodded. I painted it the day after he said your name. Daniel swallowed the ache in his throat. You didn't have to. I didn't have to, she said. I needed to. Later, as evening curled in like smoke, Sam fell asleep on June's lap, head resting on her sweater. Daniel moved slowly, covering both of them with a knit blanket. No words, just a breath shared. That weekend, the three of them planted a tree. In Daniel's backyard, it was June's idea. A tree grows when it's cared for, she'd said. Roots take time, so do people. Sam chose the spot, next to the swing he no longer used but still watched from time to time. Daniel dug. June held the sapling. Sam patted the dirt with small, focused hands. They stood together when it was a dun wind rustling the leaves. Sam looked up. Ours, he said. Daniel looked at June. She smiled, fingers muddy. It was a beginning. Not perfect, but real. Quiet conflict, closing 100-300 words. That night, after Sam had fallen asleep, again Daniel walked June to the door. There was moonlight on the porch. Petals from the newly planted tree drifted like snow. He turned toward her, hesitated, then leaned in to kiss her. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't rehearsed. It was honest. But June gently pulled away, placing a hand on his chest. Not yet, she whispered. Please. He froze. Don't make me part of your healing, she said. Heal first, then come find me. She stepped back, offering a sad smile before walking into the night. Daniel stood there, hollow and full at the same time. Then he heard small footsteps behind him. Sam. The boy stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Safe, he said softly. Daniel knelt down and pulled his son into a hug, not out of duty, but love, the real kind. Closing image. Wind chimes clinked softly on the porch. Petals floated from the new tree, swirling in the warm air. June walked alone down the street, Daniel's letter tucked into her coat pocket, and Sam, asleep again, clutched the toy, playing the lullaby in a loop as moonlight bathed the room. 1 year later, the diner smelled like oranges and cinnamon. The light was brighter somehow, softened by age and presence. People lingered longer. Coffee stayed warmer. Sam darted between booths, giggling, a bundle of energy wrapped in a blue hoodie. In one hand he carried a marker, in the other a stack of napkins. He stopped at each table to draw a smiley face, 2 eyes, a lopsided grin, and handed them out like gifts. Here, he told an older woman. Yours has eyelashes. Thank you, sweetheart, she said, touched as if he'd given her a rare coin. Behind the counter, June was wiping glasses, her apron tied haphazardly, a smudge of green paint still clinging to her wrist from her morning session. Daniel leaned against the pass-through window, flipping through a worn leather notebook. He watched Sam, eyes soft, shoulders loose. I think he's taken over, he murmured to June. She smiled without looking. We should start charging him rent. Outside of the diner, their new space had opened just a few weeks earlier. A warm studio with wide windows. A playroom filled with textures and sounds, and a cozy coffee nook where parents could breathe. It was called the Listening Room. Co-owned. Co-dreamed. For children who needed space to speak without pressure. For parents who didn't yet know how to listen. Sam had helped paint the mural inside. Big clouds, quiet trees, and a swing that looked suspiciously like the one from June's old painting. On weekends, June brought in her easel. Sam helped pick colors. Sometimes, he just sat nearby, humming quietly. Daniel had started writing again. Not code. Not reports. A book. About silence. And fatherhood. And things he never thought he could say out loud. At the small community event marking the opening of their studio, Daniel stood at the front of the room, holding the first copy of his book. The cover was simple, a watercolor of a boy in blue beneath a tree. His hands shook as he opened to the dedication, but he didn't speak. He looked to Sam, who stood beside him in slightly too big shoes and a confident stance. Sam took the book, squinted at the words, and read aloud in a steady voice. For those who taught me to listen, my son and the woman who changed us both. The room went silent. June wiped her eyes. No one moved, until Sam leaned into the mic and added, Also, I like snacks. The laughter broke like thunder, but the emotion lingered, wrapped in the room like a blanket. Final emotional sequence. Next 1,1200 words. On the anniversary of her passing, Daniel did something he hadn't in 3 years. He visited her grave. There was no rain, no cinematic weather, just the soft hush of a cloudy morning and a boy holding a blue ribbon in one hand. Why blue? Daniel asked as they walked the gravel path. Because she liked the sky, Sam said, and I like the sky too. They stopped at the grave, the headstone simple, worn smooth by time and memory. Daniel crouched down, brushing leaves from the surface. For a while he said nothing, then softly, "He's okay now. We're okay." Sam stood beside him, gripping the ribbon. "I brought this." He reached up and tied it to the nearby tree branch, not too tight, not too loose. It fluttered gently in the wind. Behind them, June waited by the path. When Daniel rose, he didn't speak. He just took her hand. She didn't ask anything. Didn't need to. They sat together beneath that tree for a long while, shoulders brushing, breaths slow. Later, in their shared studio space, June handed Sam a small velvet pouch. Inside was a locket, brass aged, shaped like a teardrop. He opened it slowly. Inside were 2 empty photo slots. "One for your mom," June said, "and one for whoever else you want." Sam turned it over in his hands for a long time. Then he walked to a small box of photos. Ones Daniel had scanned, printed, and saved, in a drawer. He pulled out a picture of his mother, smiling on a beach in a red dress. Then one of June, hair pulled back, laughing with paint on her nose. He pressed them into place, snapped the locket shut. "Family," he whispered. June's eyes brimmed again, but she just nodded. That afternoon, the 3 of them walked into the backyard. The tree they had planted a year ago now stood tall, branches casting gentle shade over the swing set. Sam knelt in the dirt and placed a small blue stone beneath the trunk. The first offering in a new tradition. Daniel followed with a note, folded, tightly, nothing written on the outside. June added a paintbrush, tiny, well-used. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Closing image and outro, last 300 to 400 words. Summer arrived soft and slow, like a hush before a story. Sam ran ahead, chasing fireflies in the late afternoon. His laughter rose like birdsong. Daniel and June walked behind him, close but not rushed. Her fingers brushed his. His hand caught hers. No declarations, no promises, just presence, just quiet. The camera lingered on the tree, tall now, strong. A locket hung from one of its branches, catching the golden light. Beneath its roots, a letter remained, unread, but known. There would be more chapters, some spoken, some silent, some not yet written. Last line, some stories don't begin with words. They begin in silence and become everything. Outro voiceover. If this story touched you, subscribe or share where you're watching from. These stories matter.